Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to the new episode of the Full Funnel B2B Marketing Podcast. This is your host, Andrei Zinkevich. Today, as we have done it in the past episodes, we are going to chat in a live mode with a good friend of mine, Yaag Ganesh, who is running marketing at Avoma, and as well, he is the host of the top B2B marketing podcast called the ABM Conversations. Yeah, thanks a lot for joining me.
Hey, thank you so much, Andre. It's such a pleasure, and I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. So thank you once again.
And for you guys, if you are not subscribed to his podcast, I just would like to mention that he has hosted around 80 plus episodes with the guests like Seth Godin, Guy Kawasaki, Rand Fishkin, Jon Miller from Demandbase, Chris Walker, David Cancel from Thrift, Sangram Vajre. So bunch of fantastic guests. And the one fact that I just want to share with you that we both are big fans of Naval Ravikant, and the book that he didn't write that book, but actually it's a compilation of his best thoughts and best tweets called the Almanack of Naval Ravikant. And that actually inspired us to extract all the knowledge Yaag got from his guests, from his podcast, and share this consolidated B2B marketing knowledge with you today as well, revealing the myths about B2B marketing and sharing some world-best cases. So I would like to start with a rapid fire session. And
Wow.
First question I would like to ask you, what are the top 3 learnings you had from interviewing marketing mastodons like Seth Godin, Guy Kawasaki, and others?
The top don'ts?
Yes, the top learnings, top 3 learnings.
Oh, okay. Top 3 learnings. One, the number one learning, I would say, I'm a huge fan of Seth Godin. The number one learning for me is keep things simple. So if you look at anything that Seth Godin says, it's very relatable, and it's something that's at first principles. You don't have to complicate stuff. So that's that. And then second biggest learning for me is don't measure things for the sake of measuring. Measure things only if it makes sense. Probably when you start with as a small company, look at just 1 or 2 things that matters the most and measure that. And then the third important thing is that just don't go with the flow of what everybody is talking about, but do what's more sensible to you and your company and your goals at that point of time. So these are the 3 things. At the end of the day, I think marketing, simply put, is building relationships and trust. So just do things that are sensible to you and not because everybody else is doing something.
Cool. And what is the most unconventional advice you have heard?
Wow. The most unconventional thing, this is something that I heard way back in 2011. One of my first mentors, he told me that when I was just getting into MarTech, this is what this person told me. He said, anyone using the tool without knowing what is it for, a tool without knowing what is it for, you're still going to be a fool. Right? A fool with a tool is still a fool. So that's something very profound that stuck with me. And from there on, anytime I've picked up a tool, I've not started with because I got excited about it, but it's more about I had a purpose, I had a need for it. And then I started scouting tools based on what my requirement is.
And let's finish this rapid fire session with a question. I believe you will love it. What are the top 3 things you thought that absolutely make no sense, but later you realized that these are brilliant ideas?
Right. So I think this is also a little bit challenging. The number one thing that I initially thought does not make sense was, say, everybody was getting on Clubhouse. And and I also went in, I tried, for a month, I stayed there. And then I felt it could have been exciting, but then I really did not gain things much from there. I left it out. But the learning is that for me, the key learning there is, hey, you know what? If things could have been asynchronous, if I can go back and learn something from that, then it could have been useful. And the second thing is, say, initially I thought content marketing is predominantly only written piece of content. That was my original idea of what content marketing is. And then once I realized that, hey, pretty much, anything, be it podcast, be it your videos, anything that you can concise your information it in a very consumable manner, then that is content marketing. And the third piece is that when I looked at content, what I initially thought, or what I initially agreed with a lot of people, is that I thought content should be funnel based, in a sense like top of the funnel, mid funnel, and bottom funnel. But then over a period of time, I realized that it is not going to work that way. It's primarily going to be based on how you need to approach it. Like say, it depends on where you are in your organization. For me, as a startup, in at Avoma, I'm a single person marketing team, and at this point, if I'm going to go with that flow, then before I get some return out of my content, it's going to be ages, and I'm going to be shown the door very quickly. So yeah, it's like, you hear things, but you take everything with a pinch of salt.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And I believe we should chat about content marketing and demand generation in general,
Yeah.
because lots of people are talking about demand generation nowadays. I believe it became a buzzword even. But again, lots of people are talking about the importance of educating your buyers. At the same time, I see that lots of marketers use these trends as an excuse to hang out on social media and explaining the lack of own results just by the fact that their executives don't get marketing, So the question I would like to ask you, what are the most dangerous content marketing trends in B2B that can destroy your business, and what your guests are saying about this?
Right. So the number one thing about content marketing is that, again, as I said, if you're going to go with the flow of, say, the funnel model, it's not going to work. That's my biggest learning, and I'll tell you why. So if you're a company of the size of HubSpot, then probably it makes somewhat sense. But just imagine for a moment, like say, HubSpot, at some point, they created this piece of content around how to create a GIF, right? So creating a GIF had nothing to do with their inbound marketing software or CRM or anything that they do, right? But for them, it drives traffic, and then the volume of traffic that they are dealing with, for them, it works, it makes sense. But for me, in my case, it's like I have to make sure that if I'm getting 100 people, at least I want 20 of them to go and sign up for my product. So I need to make sure that the traffic that I drive in is relevant. So the thing that I will do from at that step is that instead of cutting down, say this is awareness content, this is creating interest, this is for consideration, this is for decision making, I would probably combine all of these into one. I'll talk. The way I even go about deciding how to choose a topic is based on a score, whether I can really mention my product or not. Now, when I say mention my product, I'm not talking about, hey, my product does this. No, I'm talking about how to do something. And if that's a real pain point for my audience, I'll talk about that and then bring my product into that context. So that is one piece. And the second thing about content marketing is that, a lot of people also think that you should not be mentioning a product, or you should not be talking about what you do. You can, but you should make it in a meaningful way. Instead of saying that buy my product, you show how a problem can be solved using yours, then that really helps. And the third piece is that, yes, you should, people think that too much of SEO will pollute your marketing. I would say it's about combining the intent and what you're writing for and the volume. So just to give you an example, the way I work. So I go to Ahrefs, for example, and I look at, say, a problem that is closest to what I want to talk about. Say, for example, it could be customer churn, or it could be active listening, or it could be anything related to what I'm trying to solve for. And I'll look at Ahrefs, I'll find say 3 or 4 keywords related to what I want to talk for, and I'll zero in on that particular keyword which has more search volume. Now, the second thing that I'll do is I'll also go back to Avoma and listen to the calls between my prospect and my AE, right? So when I listen to that, now I understand what are the kind of questions that people are asking, what are the problems that they're talking about. So one of the articles that I recently wrote, that is, I wrote about filler words, I wrote about how do you identify potential signals for churn. So all these were questions that people were asking our AE. And then I thought, hey, this is the question that people are asking. I don't have this content on my website yet, but I know this product can solve for that. Now, I will show you that, hey, this is a problem. This is how you go about solving it. Now, I also use Ahrefs volume on one side. And on the other side, I also use what my customer wants. And I start to marry these two. Now, this doesn't seem like I'm pushing the product on you. I'm actually saying how you can do this, but I'm also showing in the process how my product helps you there. So yeah, these are some of the things that I learned. And the most dangerous thing that I would say is that, again, not harping on anything that is trendy at this point, unless it makes sense to your business, unless it is very contextual to you. Don't jump on everything that comes your way. Talking about Olympics in my blog is not going to help, right? So pick something that is very useful to you at this point and your audience, and then try to match these two. So yeah.
And you know what made me smiling? It's exactly when you were saying that the goal and basically where the word demand generation comes from. Basically, you need to somehow create demand for your product or for your service. And how can you create the demand if you are not showcasing what your product can do, basically what challenges this product can solve, or what, let's say, the outcomes this product can help with. So it's like a natural part to showcase the, let's say, specific benefits of your product. Not saying this is the fantastic feature. It's not about being feature obsessed, but it's about demonstrating the benefits of it. And basically what works for us at Full Funnel IO.
Right.
If you are following me on LinkedIn, you know that like every week I'm sharing some practical case studies. And I'm not saying that this is the ultimate, solution, but I say this is a workflow or this is a process that works for us. And this is how it works. And that's it. I'm not saying that this is the best way, just do only that way, just run this campaign or whatever. But I'm explaining how it works. And then people are reaching out and asking, can you help us implementing, the same campaign? Can you train our team, etc.? That's a fantastic example. And why I was smiling is exactly you were saying this about your content. And then you mentioned that, hey, I'm just logging to Avoma and I'm listening to this. And this is exactly what the native promotion. So that was a live native promotion. I mean, in a positive way, not like, of course, not. It wasn't a pitch, but for people who have the same probably need, they might be interested. Wow, so he is talking about Avoma, and this is how he solves this specific thing. So probably I need to check this product. And just out of curiosity, people will sign up and try the product. And that's fantastic. This is exactly what I love. The second thing, let me just wrap it up. So instead of focusing on volume of your traffic, because you have seen this probably on social media, marketers love to brag, hey, I got 10,000 views from Quora, hey, I got 1,000 upvotes on Reddit, etc. But my question is, okay, but how many target accounts consumed your content? What are the business outcomes? Did your sales team have an opportunity to connect with the buying committee of this target account? Did you get any inbound inquiries? Did you get any media invites? It's the same like people saying on LinkedIn, hey, my post got 10K views. So would you like to learn more? This vanity metrics make sense only for marketers or only for people who want, to satisfy their ego with these numbers, but it has nothing with revenue. Am I correct?
Yeah. So see, you're so right. See, there's a balance, right? So at the same time, I would not say completely focus on quality over quantity. I think you need both. But here's what I would look at. So I don't want, say, 100,000 people coming into my website every month, and out of which 1% is actually going on and signing up. Rather, I would be happy with, say, 10,000 people, and out of which a good 20% or 25% go on to sign up the product. So the number one thing is that you even start with, even when you drive traffic inbound, you need to make sure that you're driving the right kind of traffic. And for that purpose, it's not just, yes, of course, the qualification of accounts and all those things matter when you go outbound, but even when you come inbound, right? So I think the kind of topics that you choose to write your content in itself acts as a huge qualifier. So the kind of topics that I mentioned, right? So if I'm going to broadly talk about how to get X, Y, and Z, or how to make a GIF or any of those things, yes, I would get all kinds of traffic, and probably if something is trending, that might really help. But at the end of the day, what I'm going to be like at Avoma, one of the things that I'm very happy to share is that I'm not measured on the amount of traffic that I drive. I'm not measured on pretty much MQLs or any of those things. One thing that Aditya told me when I joined the company is that he said, Yaag, all I want you to do is just do good marketing, and bring in new initiatives, take up things based on what you really feel comfortable about. But once you have an idea, just broadly document what you want to achieve. Based on that, we will have a discussion, and we will identify if we are aligned on goals. And once that's there, then go about executing it. Now, what happens is when I go and start doing it, eventually I see the traffic increasing. Eventually, I see the number of signups increasing. All those things happen organically. But the moment I start to run behind traffic alone, then my entire practice starts to get sandbagged towards one corner, and ultimately it doesn't work. Like, what's the point of me generating 5,000 or 500 downloads of an ebook that my salesperson cannot even use? They have not shown intent towards buying the product. It's just there. On the contrary, I would rather, not generate leads out of that. I would just let people consume my content for free. And if they really love it, and from there they see point in the product, they go on, sign up, and then, my AE reaches out. That is far more making sense, because the moment somebody is signing up, the intent is quite high. They've already tried the product. They've already started all those things. And then the conversation, even the sales cycle, is going to be much lower. So I think that way it makes more sense.
I know what's the goal. What goal can you pursue with like saying that my ebook was downloaded 500 times? You know what? You can join any growth hacking community and post, hey, would you like to know the secret sauce of getting 500 downloads of my ebook? Leave a comment and I will send it to you. I'm kidding. Okay.
I will never do that.
I want to ask you one really interesting question. Let's pretend, if you can just for a moment, reflect on all the conversations you had with Seth, with Guy Kawasaki, with all these fantastic guests. If we could wrap up your conversations into one self-assessment questionnaire about the mistakes almost all B2B companies make, even without realizing it, what mistakes would be included into that self-assessment?
I think one most common mistake across all these people, and pretty much everybody agrees that they've seen through their process, is not knowing if they are pursuing the right accounts in terms of ABM, for example, right? So you start with a set of accounts. You think these 100 accounts make more sense for me, and you start with that. And halfway through the journey, when you have dipped into your toes and you're halfway down, and you suddenly realize that, hey, you know what? These people don't even relate to what I'm looking for. Or so that's one piece. Are you looking at the right set of accounts? And the second thing is that either saying I'm going to go inbound or I'm going to go outbound. Like being an extremist on any one idea does never work. So here's my experience, my learning from pretty much all these people, and also my personal learning is this. So when you get when you get demand inbound, you have absolutely no control about, the ticket size of that particular account. It could be just, $50, $100. It could be one subscription or whatever. But when you go outbound, then you have some control over the kind of accounts that you're pursuing. So you need to have a mix of both. So one way, you're going to make sure that the inbound engine is coming up so that your cost is decreasing. And then the third piece is this. Now, almost for all companies, the effort that people put on brand is almost an afterthought. People they say that, hey, I'm a startup. At this point, to me, the priority is to stay afloat. So I will rather put all my efforts into demand gen, and then try to ensure that I'm increasing the revenue. But when you have this brand as an afterthought, it's a problem. If you don't think about it from day one, your cost of customer acquisition is never going to come down. You have to make sure, and one of the simplest ways to measure that is, say for example, you start your company, and in the first, say after 6 months of your company starting, just go to a tool like Ahrefs and do a keyword search on how many people, what is the search volume for your company's name as a keyword. That's the most simplest dipstick that you can do, and say if it's 0 to 10, right? So then put in some efforts and recheck it after a span of say another 6 months, or say even 12 months. And now if that volume has not increased, you know that your brand has not resulted into something. Your efforts are not going into the right area. So that can be one simple dipstick. But overall, what I'm trying to say is that you need to think about brand from day one. You need to have a mix of inbound and outbound, and at the same time, you should make sure that you're having the right set of things that you're measuring against. I'm not saying don't measure anything at all. Measure just one or two things that really matters to your entire company.
That's awesome. What can I say? I like these things, and especially that you touched the cost of acquisition, because, and as well, this, let's say, cross obsession issues, I believe lots of companies have all of these things. And one more question I would like to touch is, again, what are the best campaigns that your guests shared with you that were executed on a small budget, or what we used to call on a ramen budget, and without an army of copywriters or marketers, fancy tech stack, 6-figure budgets, etc. I believe you have a collection of these golden nuggets.
Right. So one of the very interesting stories, I would probably, I think two things come to my mind off the bat. One is the story that Casey Graham of Gravy shared. He spoke about this as the 50-cent rule. So what he says is that, and this is not even something that is spent on the customer. It's something that you spend on your employee or the person with whom you're working with. So he said that, hey, you know what? The day you recognize your internal person, just you could be giving him a small gift, or even recognizing in front of other customers. The moment they start feeling good about something, they're going to really give more impact to your company, and that's the enthusiasm that they have within the company will also reflect on their customer. So this is one. And the second piece of story is something that I heard from David Wax, the CEO of a company called Handwritten. And this company, basically what they do is they sell or they send handwritten notes. That's what the company's business is. And he says that something as small as a note can really make a huge difference in how people feel, because the kind of gifts or the kind of things that people spend on, like say in the pre-COVID era, people spend so much of money on creating merchandise and kind of say swags that they could give in events to people. But 90% of the time, these are things that either, say if it's a t-shirt, at best I would be using those t-shirts while I'm going to the gym, right? So they are not going to be seen anywhere else. But on the contrary, if you give something very personalized and something like a handwritten note, then people, and it could be as simple as an apology, it could be an appreciation, it could be anything, that as long as it's an honest conversation, people tend to put it on their fridge or keep it on their table. In fact, another interesting thing that I could think of is the way Seth Godin promoted his book Purple Cow. The interesting story that he said was, when he launched the Purple Cow, it seems that there was not a lot of interest from the publishing companies because his previous book did not do well as it came during the 9/11. And what he did was he just printed 5,000 copies of his book. And he said, you know what? He reached out to his audience through a Fast company where he used to write a column. And he said, hey, you know what? If you need a copy of the book, I'll give it to you for free. My just shipping and handling cost is $5. You just send me that with your address and I'll send it across. And the interesting thing that Seth did is he did not just send the book, but he put it in a milk carton, which was designed like a purple cow. And everybody started to have it on their desk. Now that became a thing that everybody would ask question, hey, what is this all about? What is a purple cow? And then immediately what it also impacted is that the people who had the carton on their desk, these people were seen as people who were ready to try things fresh. They were early adopters of a new concept, and that gave them a sense of pride. So identifying those people who could push your organization is my biggest takeaway. It's not about, and again, the best part is when I asked him, how did you identify these people? He said, I did not identify. They had a problem. I just put my solution out, and I did it in a space where these kind of people hang out. And to whom this really mattered the most, they came forward to grab it. So it's like just being in the right place at the right time and trying to identify if this is your right audience, if this is your right audience or not, and then moving on from there.
It reminds me a story I probably have heard from Perry Marshall, and he calls this process, if I'm correct, wrecking the shotgun. So it means that you need to, so you have the target market, and then you need to, let's say, have a one sort of activity that can help you to identify the audience that might be interested in your solution, product, service, whatever. And then you just send this over, like you have mentioned. That's a fantastic case study, and you just ignore the all other people on that market. But then you have the proof of the concept, you have the testimonials, the case studies, use cases, whatever that you can repurpose into paid acquisition. You can target the other audiences with that creative, with that social proof. You can create like multiple, let's say, pieces of content for social media. You can create blog posts, whatever, and voila, that creates that inbound engine for your company.
Yeah, absolutely. And another, very key, interesting learning that I've also had is, I was asking Seth what he thinks about category creation versus narrative building versus positioning. Okay, because these three sound very similar and very adjacent to each other. And he said that we can discuss semantics all day, but the key thing is that, hey, positioning is fundamental. It's like you're telling your audience where you belong, or what is that you're actually solving for, and everything else aligns to that. But here's my biggest takeaway in that conversation. He said, the moment you're thinking of differentiating, he says differentiation is a very personal, or it's a very selfish approach, because you are trying to show yourself differently compared to others, but the audience is already looking at you in a certain way. So invest at the fundamentals on positioning, and differentiation should happen by its own. And one of my most favorite examples in this area is the way Drift came into being. When you look at a company like Drift, Intercom was in its existence from probably 2011 or 12, I'm not sure. So when Drift came into existence, Intercom was already a unicorn. And they could have come in and they could have easily said that, hey, we are a revolutionary chat tool, blah, 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 and we also do this. But on the contrary, they did not speak about being a chat tool at all. They just said, hey, we are here for, we are a conversational marketing tool. Simple as that. So what it instantly did was it positioned Intercom as a tool for support, and it positioned Drift for sales and marketing. So the moment that's done, now the audience is very clear. You don't have to go the extra mile to go out and differentiate or build a narrative around it and all of that. So fundamentals are taken care of. And now as the company evolves, in fact, David Cancel said this on the show. I asked him, like, hey, you know what, when you had this conversational marketing going for you, why did you suddenly choose to change things and start talking about revenue acceleration? And he said, you know what, on one side, yes, we did have that. And to create one positioning itself is difficult. And then on the other side, for us, it was the conversational sales aspect was also coming up. But at some point, we had to marry these two, because we were not just going after this. We were also looking, we wanted to solve the problem of how much of time people are wasting on a CRM. I wanted to combine all of this. And I thought, what's the single most thing that's troubling pretty much everyone? Everyone wants to generate revenue. So we said, combine these two and make it revenue acceleration. And then, credit to them, they made sure that also worked. And it's a fantastic story. You can learn so much just by looking at them.
Exactly. And they're actually a fantastic example because what they said, anyhow, for me, basically, I'm just sharing my subjective opinion. Either conversational marketing and, let's say, revenue acceleration are hype buzzwords that mean nothing, to be honest. But what was nice about Thrift is that they started to talk about account-based marketing. If you take a look on Google Trends, you'll see that starting from 2016, exactly when Sangram started to, evangelize the ABM,
yeah.
and the trend skyrocketed. And basically, they noticed the trend while Intercom, was doing what they were doing. So Drift focused on this. Lots of people started to talk about account-based marketing, about revenue operations in general. Lots of people started to talk about aligning marketing to revenue, so about changing the, let's say, flipping outbound to inbound, shifting from the lead generation mindset to, let's say, to client-centric mindset. And that was a nice switch because they exactly, I believe this is a key intent. If a company starts talking about ABM, all of these things, that becomes a nice add-on, or let's say it becomes a great software that helps you to execute your ABM and revenue operations. So that was a fantastic thing. And basically the companies that actually started to started to buy the ABM idea, they were investing heavily in tech. And it was no brainer for Thrift to, let's say, drive a new enterprise plan for these companies that help them to go upmarket and grow the revenue. So that's a fantastic example. And I believe what Seth said, and this is a really nice point I believe we can talk about. So he said, and you mentioned the positioning, and of course it's a fundamental thing. But one point I believe lots of companies, again, my own, observation, lots of companies think about the positioning only in a one way. So they say, okay, we are full funnel, we are account-based marketing, full funnel account-based marketing operations company. But I can put any kind on my LinkedIn title, on my LinkedIn page, on my website, etc. And this is how I want my audience to perceive my company. But at there is a second, let's say, think about the positioning. We need somehow to bring this message to target audience so they will start actually perceiving our company that way. And this is where demand generation comes. So basically, demand generation is a process that helps you to position your company exactly the way you want to be perceived. That's, so it's not just, finding that differentiator, that idea that helps you to stand out from the competition, but also it's a program, it's a consistent way of promoting that marketing message to a target market, which is really, really important. And I don't understand, but lots of people ignore that fact, that you won't be positioned that way as you want if you are not proactively doing something.
Right. So here's another interesting thing. When you said that story of Sangram and also how Seth Godin and the perception of all of that. But here's one thing that people often don't also get. So here's this. When I started dabbling with the positioning in some of my past jobs and even currently, the fundamental fact is that everybody tells you that put yourself in a particular category, or let's take Terminus as an example. When they came into the industry, the actual problem that their product solves for is programmatic ads. Right. So, and in 2013 and 14 or 15, probably people knew of that technology as programmatic ads. Nobody, ABM had not become mainstream there. So at that point of time, pretty much the Gartners and the Forresters and anybody who's analysts or media is trying to box them into what they know of. And due props or due credit to the entire team at Terminus is that they said, no, we are not programmatic ads. Yes, we do that well, but we are doing that as part of a larger ABM problem. That's what we are solving for. And so because they stuck to that, today when we go back and think about Terminus, we are not thinking ads, we are thinking ABM. Now, for any other company that's starting their journey to do the same thing, there'll be people who will always come and tell you that this is how I perceive you. Like say, think of our own industry, right? So we have Gong on one side, which is a typical enterprise sales coaching tool, a Gong and Chorus Plane on one side. And then you have the note-taking tools, which does only note-taking where it's not automated. You have to take manual notes like your OneNote or Evernote or even your Scratchpad and Doolies of the world. Now, when we show Avoma, the number one thing that people ask is, "Hey, are you competing with Gong or are you competing with this people?" So then we tell them that no, you know what, this company solves this piece of the puzzle. This company solves this piece of the puzzle. For us, the DNA comes from ensuring that there is collaboration across all functions. Yes, we have automated, AI assisted note taking. We also have that, but the DNA is that we allow everyone to collaborate so that the input of the sales and marketing gets together. So, and one of the fundamental facts that I learned through this process is that when I'm in talks with an analyst from the sales side, they are going to look at things and say that, hey, you know what, I want you to position on this side. Somebody else is going to say that, hey, you know what, I need you to position as a note-taking software. And at some point, we need to take a stand. You need to understand who your customers are, what they are looking for, and at the same time, don't derive your positioning from who your customers are. I mean, it needs to be a balance between who your customers are, what problem you're solving, and then your own North Star as to where you're going. In between these two is where your positioning is, and you need to continuously keep hitting it. You need to say that this is the category that we are building. This is who we are. This is who we are. And at some point of time, it's not going to happen on day one. It's not going to happen in 1 year, but it's probably an effort that goes over a period of time that eventually establishes yourself into that category.
And you touched the point of collaboration across sales, marketing, customer success. I love this. I know, again, this is a topic, lots of people are talking about, but it reminds me one of the polls I probably did a month ago on LinkedIn. And then I asked a question about the collaboration across the teams. And is it documented? Is it a clear process that everybody knows, what software should be used, how the information should be exchanged between the teams, what are the takeaways from, like, you can take from the information you are getting? And lots of people said, actually, no. So basically, we have the collaboration, but it's not structured. And, what is chaotic, it can be called a process or whatever. So it's just a sporadic activity inside the organization. Yeah. So a question I wanted to ask you, I know you are talking a lot about this, how to get leadership buy-in and foster cross-cultural collaboration across sales, marketing, customer success, and engineering. And then we'll switch to the questions that folks are asking us.
Sure. So fundamentally, I think when you look at collaboration, there needs to be a sense of purpose for it. So a collaboration is not just because I want to come across as a collaborative company. Like say, for example, if let me give you a very simple marketing and sales use case. Now, my salesperson is talking to customers and prospects on a daily basis. It's like, say, the AEs are talking to the prospects, and then the customer success person is talking to the customers. And they have so much of context of the typical things that they're asking about and typical problems they are talking about. And as a marketer, if I have no access to all these information, if I have no idea about any of these things, what I'll simply be doing is that I'll be looking at, hey, you know what, this is what I think Avoma is. These are the product features. And I convert all these features into problem statements and then talk about that as pain points and then offer the same product as solution. Now, that's not going to work because, the moment you look at something and you're creating something very artificially, it's going to stay aloof with anybody who reads it. So it's just going to be either content for the sake of content. Now, when you understand this basic information about what your customer wants or what your prospect is asking, then that makes a lot of sense. Now, take that into the context of an engineer. Now, if an engineer knew that, hey, this is something that our customer is bringing up again and again with the customer success folks, and these are the set of features that they are continuously requesting. Now, they will not just be looking at their, say, your product roadmap, but they will in turn prioritize things based on what the customers are requesting the most. Similarly, again, you can look at customer success, or even you can look at training a new employee, for example. One of the things that happened at our company is that typically it takes about 3 months for any new sales rep to start demoing their products or doing their job. It takes about 3 months before they start doing demos independently. They shadow on calls and things like that. Now, once you have access to all the previous conversations and get that context, now you could reduce that time. I could probably, sometimes I just, while I go on a jog, I listen to all of these calls and I get the context and I learn. So the fundamental of all of these things is that if you can make the customer knowledge as a base for your entire organization, then you make things easier. And the way to get leadership buy-in is that you show them that all these things are directly connected to growth. If everybody is pulling from different directions, think of this like, there is a car in front of you and there are 2 people pulling it on the front and 2 people pulling it on the back. The car is not going to move. But if everybody is pushing it to the same direction, probably it makes sense. And now you say that, hey, this is the context and this is the direction that we are going, and use this information because this person is feeding into the other person. Now, what happens is by doing this, I know what the salesperson is doing. The salesperson knows how I can use their content and how I can feed into somebody else in the company. So at the end of the day, there is no silos. Nobody's questioning the use of it. And fundamentally or historically, when you look at it, marketing has always had to go and say that, hey, you know what? I am there. I'm a marketing department. I'm doing this, this, and this. I exist in the company. Please pay me attention. But no, right? So once there is transparency as to how everybody is feeding into each other, you don't have to prove anything. And when everybody's moving the same direction, then the leadership has no problem in approving that. So make sure that you have a context as to why you're doing something. And when you have something as the base, then it's much easier to get approval. So take something very meaningful, take something very tangible when you want to ask a question or get an approval.
Thank you so much for these brilliant answers. As we were chatting for almost 45 minutes, I believe we need to dedicate some time to our folks who joined the session. So guys,
absolutely,
feel free to ask your questions in the chat, and I will ask your questions or turn on the camera like Pravin has done it and join the conversation, and feel free to ask your questions. Pravin, you are welcome.
Hi, thanks, Andre, and thanks, Yaag, for making very good points on funnel model and differentiation. My question is, I hail from the communication industry, and we work very closely with marketing teams and CEOs and other management executives. Now, the major problem that we face is getting a management buy-in on the idea of segregating differentiation, the USP as we call it, from positioning, from public perception about yourself, about the company. Now, how to overcome this challenge? How to get the management to buy in on the idea of segregating the two?
Right. So I think this is a $1 million question, right? So sometimes when you look at it, I think there is no. I'll be honest, there is no easy answer to this. But I think the root cause or the simplest way to approach this is find what is the most valuable thing that is for the CEO or with whom you're working with, and try to connect a value system along with that. So to give you an example, if you're talking about, say, the importance of creating this brand or this positioning, how you're perceived and things like that. Now, if you can map it to something like a customer acquisition cost, saying that, hey, you know what, once you become a brand, there are going to be more and more people who are going to be searching for your brand name, and the competition, like say, for example, if somebody is searching for your company as a name, there are not going to be so many people competing against it. Think of it, if I'm competing for in AdWords or probably even organic search for a particular keyword which has a lot of competition, that's a whole different game. But once you start becoming a brand and people just start directly coming to you by using your company's name as a keyword, for example, then that becomes much more easier. Your customer acquisition cost is naturally coming down. And that is the fundamental reason why you need to start building a brand. I'm just giving you an example. I don't think this will directly answer you or solve your problem in one day, but I think this is an angle that you can take.
I will drop my 5 cents here because that's a really great question. And to give you an idea how to get executives buy-in, quite often, if you'll come up with some, let's say, logical arguments, you won't sell the idea. But what will work if you'll come up with some facts? And the facts that you can use, these facts could be an eye-opener for your executives. One of the ideas, you can run the market research and ask like a honest question. So this is our company and these are our competitors. Do you see any difference between us? You can ask, without even a market research, you can call your top 10 clients, or just occasionally select 10 clients, call them and ask, do you see any difference between our company and competitors? And then you can ask another question. If you had a conversation with your peer, with your colleague, who has the same role in a similar company, how would you describe our company to them? That's the first, let's say, type of feedback you can get from your customers. And secondly, you can go to LinkedIn, you can go to any communities your target audience hangs out, and you can ask a question. Let's say, let's pretend, when it comes to account-based marketing, what software you will recommend? Because if you want, it's just a specific example, but you got the idea. So if you want to be positioned as a #1 ABM vendor, then basically people inside the community should name the company. And then you can hear all the replies, and if you want, you can reach out and you can ask, have you ever heard about your company? What's your opinion about this? And secondly, you can ask if some people will name your company and other company, you can again follow up these people and ask, how do you feel? What's the difference between these two solutions? And that would be the best, let's say, market research you can present to your executives. That would be an eye-opener. You can say, look how our target market perceives our company. So we can continue to be one size fits all, running this generic positioning, but the, let's say, drawbacks of this approach are that we have miserable reply rates to our outbound, our conversion rate from paid acquisition is low, our cost of acquisition is high, our sales cycle is long. And these are the outcomes that we just must say, okay, so we are fine with this, but we don't want to work on, let's say, these strategic decisions, or we are not fine with this and let's change the game.
Sure. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other questions, guys? Feel free to join the conversation or feel free to ask the questions in the chat. There was one question by Karthik. He asked the question about how Yaag picks up the right topics for Avoma, but basically this is what I mentioned. We have discussed this in the beginning, so we were chatting about the content marketing, about the volumes, about the target accounts. So I will be sending the recording of this podcast, both audio and video, so you can re-listen to the episode.
And I had a question for Yaag. So this is a slightly different one. So Yaag,
Karthik,
so you know that content marketing is more of a marathon than a sprint, right? So what's been your process, right? It takes a long time for people to get in this over. Can you hear me?
I'm
Yaag?
sorry, Karthik, I lost you in between.
I think I lost you. So what I'm trying to say is, how do you sustain this process day in and day out? There are times when certain content does not resonate with the audience or does not build the traction. Whereas, what's your secret sauce, to pick the right guest and ask the right questions on your podcast? I've been a fan and I've listened to your podcast probably from day one. So what's been the secret sauce, and what does it take to replicate this day in and day out? Just give us your secret sauce.
Right. So thank you so much for the kind words, Karthik. See, I think I really don't have any secret sauce, and I'm happy to share whatever I know. So the simple thing is that I've been lucky from day one to have people like you and many others who have reached out and shared what they like and dislike about every episode. And the idea is like listening to. See, I originally when I started my podcast, I did not and till now, I'm not going after having or wanting 10,000 downloads per episode, or that. None of those things are my goals. I'm just thinking about, hey, what are the things that I want to learn from this person? And typically and this entire podcast was started out of my own frustration, in the sense like I used to listen to about a 45-minute 1 hour podcast, and I used to get about only 5 minutes of value. And I wanted to change that. And I thought, how do we do that? Let's ask real meaningful, meaty questions. There's no room for people talking about things like, this is the coffee I had, this is the college that I went to. I'm not interested in any of those things. We are just looking at how to go about solving a particular problem in a specific topic. And then I also go back and listen to many of the other episodes that the particular guest might have been on, or look at the things that they have done over the last 1 year or so, and pick up on things that are relevant to what I want to ask. So I don't, and I never start with the guest. So it's not like, I don't approach with the mindset of, hey, if I get Seth Godin or if I get a guy Kawasaki, I'll get so many downloads. Instead, I think about, hey, this is the topic that I want to address, and who is the best possible person that I can go to. Now, if I'm thinking about addressing, say, the MarTech landscape and going at it at a deeper level, then somebody like a Scott Brinker becomes my obvious choice. And then once this person gives me the time, I think it's very fundamental for me to make sure that I ask the right kind of questions, because at the end of the day, from day one I've been blessed with really committed listeners who will come back and give me a piece, and tell me that, hey, you know what, this question you did not probably ask the right questions. You should have asked this. I did not get this value. I was expecting this, that, blah, blah, blah. So once people are giving me this feedback and I start taking that and start implementing that, I think with every episode you're learning and improving. So there's no way to be complacent from day one, or there's no one way to say that, hey, you know what, if I do this podcast episode will be a hit. No, it's like continuous learning, and thanks to people like you who give me feedback.
Thank you, that was helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you. And one question regarding your podcast. It's not related to B2B marketing, or slightly related to B2B marketing, but anyhow, I would like to ask you, I believe lots of guys are curious as well. So you have had all of these fantastic guests. And if we'll just go outside and ask a random marketing person, people will say, okay, he basically probably needed to pay some money to get these people on his podcast, or he got some like really good recommendations. So my question is basically, let me use the marketing slang, how did you acquire these guests?
Well, the classic beg, borrow, steal. So, I, of course, I have not paid any of my guests. My podcast is not for a profit podcast. In fact, we had a sponsor, and now we don't even have a sponsor. We have stayed away from going towards sponsors. And the one of the reasons why I've also stayed away from any brand affiliation for the podcast is that I want to make sure that the goal of this entire podcast is, first of all, to build the best repository of B2B marketing content in the next 5 years. So with that, when I approach guests, I tell them that, hey, this is what my podcast is all about. This is the goal that we are coming towards, and this is the topic that I had in mind, and I thought it would be great to discuss with you. But for starters, what happens is, of course, at the outset, it looks like I got all these great guests, but it also is the relationship that I've built with people over long periods of time. Like, say, I've known Seth Godin, or I've been reaching out to Seth Godin from 2010, and finally I managed to get him in 2021. So it's like, a penance of 11 years. So it's that way, it's not easy. And sometimes you're also in the right place at the right time. Say, for example, I was on a Clubhouse AMA with Guy Kawasaki, and anybody could ask him questions. And that one day he picked me from the crowd because my name was different. So thanks to that. And once that happened, I asked a question, and the same day I followed up with by asking him, "Hey, if you would like to be on my podcast," and he said yes. So it's about building relationships, and once you have certain people, like say, once you have 4 or 5 of these people, then it becomes much easier because you understand what's the right way to pitch to certain people and what's the best approach. So that way it helps. And yeah, definitely I can tell you for sure that I don't have that much amount of money to pay these people and acquire them through that.
Thank you so much. That was a brilliant chat. That was a fantastic, let's say, consolidated knowledge you shared from the ABM Conversations, and I love the flow. I hope, guys, you like the episode as well. Let us know in the comments how did you like it. It wasn't dedicated to one specific topic, so as we said, it was the Almanack of ABM Conversations. Yaag, you're a fantastic guest. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm now really looking towards our full funnel summit that will be hosted in September. And yeah, for you guys, if you'd like to check the previous episodes, I dropped the link in Zoom chat, so you can sign up to our audio podcast or video podcast, whatever you prefer. So I will send you the recording as well, including the links to Avoma's website, obviously, to the ABM Conversations podcast. But I believe I don't need to recommend you. You probably have seen the value. So
that's kind of you.
To check and sign up to that podcast as well. And thanks a lot for your for coming, for joining us and asking these awesome questions. That was a great add-on. I love when fellow marketers, entrepreneurs are joining and asking the questions. So that makes our community prosper.
Thank you so much, guys. I also want to thank people for turning up and asking these questions, and also staying till the end. So it really means a lot. And thank you so much for being here. And thanks, Andre, for having me on your show.
Of course. See you guys on the future episodes and on our future webinars. Take care. Cheers.